I would like to thank everybody for stopping back by another episode of the Raider Critique, and this is week 7 of the 2018 season, the Raiders bye week. And I did promise that, yes, this is the episode to where we will go over the state of the Raiders under a couple guys' perspectives who are complete diehard Raider fans. Well, it happens that my guest that I was supposed to have on the show this week was not able to make it. He's having some family medical issues right now, and if you do, pray for Raider Dre's mother, because she happens to be in the hospital right now, which is hindering him from showing up to this episode. But I know you're watching there, Raider Dre. I hope your mom gets better, man, and I hope she gets well soon. Now, to go over what everything that I would like to go over with this football team, we're going to have to dig very deep, and we're going to have to dig back into about 4 to 5 years prior to this season to kind of understand why the state of the Raiders is where it's at right now. So we're going to use websites like Pro Football Reference to go look at these stats, to go look at who our coaching staff was, and all the necessary stuff that we need to make an assumption. And what I mean by that is because I really have been in the middle on everything that this football team has done the past 2 to 3 seasons. Now, I was not happy that we fell to a 6-10 record after coming off a 12-4 season. And I really analyzed that season extensively. As a matter of fact, I put it in the documentary to start off this the new edition of the Raider Critique, because that's really literally when everything started coming together and I figured out exactly where I wanted this channel to go. And I want to thank Mikey Raider for that, because he's basically the only reason why I do videos anymore. I saw everything that he went through and what he's been going through, and I figured that, hey, why not? You know, I've actually been out here since 2009 doing my ranting about the Oakland Raiders, and those were the Jamarcus Russell years, man. Those were some pretty terrible years, you know. But we're not going to go back that far, even though possibly that some of the contracts that were lingering back then is what affected our salary cap during 2011 and 2012 and so forth. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and hit the intro and see exactly what's going on with Pro Football Reference, and let's get our assumptions made about the state of the Raiders. Oh, and I wanted to add one more thing. I'm probably not going to be everybody's cup of tea, which means basically, you know, I'm not going to share everybody's point of view. I am going to say that right off the bat that it is good for all of us to have different opinions. That's why we're all different people. Because as far as I'm concerned, is if we were all the same, this world would be completely boring. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't want a bunch of motherfuckers who were like me anyway. But, you know, we're rare breeds. You know, that's the way us Raiders are. And we're all rare in our own certain way, shape, form, or another. You know, especially when it comes to our ideas and opinions. So I just want everybody to understand that I may share a different opinion, or we may differ in a lot of the ideas that I am about to express today about the Raiders, but understand that we are family, and that regardless on how we feel, I'm not going to question you. And honestly, you know, I don't mind if you question me, but I mean, really, there is no absolute point, because deep down, the bottom line is that we are all the Raider Nation. And most of us who are living and still supporting this football team have been through thick and thin with this football team. Especially when we are so bad. Which this year reminds me a lot of 2007. You know, there's not a glimmer of hope in sight. But I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to do what I can, and I'm going to look for a scapegoat. I'm going to point the finger on what I believe is wrong, because, man, something's got to be wrong if it's not a bunch of things. So I figured, why not just go ahead and use the bye week to point out a few of those things. So without further ado, we're going to hit the intro and we're going to get this episode started. Thanks for stopping back by, guys. Let's get to it. So I'd like to start off by comparing the coaching regimes. And as you can see, we are looking at the coaching regime from 2014 from Pro Football Reference. And our head coach was Dennis Allen and Tony Sperano. This was the year that Dennis Allen was fired. I do believe that this happens to be, I think, if not Derek Carr's rookie year, his second year. But I do want you guys to pay attention to the offensive coordinator here with Greg Olson, who happens to be our offensive coordinator now. Now, we were scoring roughly about 15.8 points a game, which ranked us second to last in the NFL in offense, and then our defense was giving up 28.3 points per game, ranking us 32nd in defense. So in 2014, we were relatively the worst team in the NFL. Now, you boost yourself up over here to the 2015 season. This is Jack Del Rio's first year. He took us to a 7-9 season, and our offensive points skyrocketed from the average that we were at last 2014 to 22.4 points a game, ranking us in the middle of the pack, 17th out of a possible 32 teams. Our defense was 22nd, giving up a 24.9% or 24.9 points per game, ranking them 22nd of 32. Now, our offensive coordinator back in 2015 was Bill Musgrave, and our defensive coordinator, of course, everybody remembers, was Ken Norton. Now, you go to 2016, and before we do that, I want to talk about Jack Del Rio, because Jack Del Rio was a player's coach. This is two completely different coaching regimes and two totally different coaching methods that we are experiencing from one regime to the next. Because Jack Del Rio was a player's coach, and there wasn't anything that he wouldn't do for his players. Now, I'm telling you right now, when it comes down to it, Jack Del Rio would have done everything for his football team and any player who played for him. Now, the reason why I bring up this article here on NBC Sports is because it kind of explains a little bit of what Jack Del Rio asked to get his players to play for him, you know. And if I could just go ahead and go over this, where it says, right down here where it says, Del Rio needed some tools turning the Raiders around, which meant Davis had to write a few checks. The new head coach mandated the Raiders upgrade their practice facility, and Davis approved significant renovations despite the fact that he was focused on relocating away from the Bay Area. He added state-of-the-art performance center behind the original property. He installed new practice fields, including an improved drainage system that prevents the soggy conditions that plagued the previous surface. The facility itself got a facelift, with adding new technology and a steam room to the building. Now, when you look at something like that, and then you go over here, which this is, it spoke in the record that we were spending a butt ton of money to make this team play. And what I mean by that is when you go over here to the 2014 salary cap, okay, this was the Dennis Allen years. The maximum salary cap we had was $907,903, $130 million. That was the maximum salary cap for every team. Okay, what we spent on injured reserve was $17,375,000, and our dead cap space was $17,835,002. Our total cap space that we spent in 2014 was $124,442,456, giving us an estimated cap space of about $6.5 million. So $6,465,000, basically. Now you move over here to 2015 when Jack Del Rio took over. And this was when the salary cap got a huge rate increase. Because that's basically what happened. It went from $130 million to $151,872,756 for every team to spend. Now, our injured reserve in 2015 happened to be $21,398,156. And our dead money was $16,688,813. So we paid about $1 million in dead cap in one season. But our total cap was $137,071,838, which made our estimated cap space doubled from the season prior to $14,800,918. Now, when we're talking about that, then we go over in between the 2015 and 2016 season is when they were posting these. Now, I got this off of an athletics website. It's been real hard to find any information about all the money that the NFL has let the Raiders borrow. But the Raiders borrowed more money from the NFL in loan for a new stadium back in 2016, and this was before we decided that we were going to move to Vegas. So, and then I do believe that we got $200 million the season prior because of roster issues and things like that we were having problems with. I know that in total we borrowed $400 million from the NFL before we decided to borrow the other $650 million after the Las Vegas representative and benefactor who was putting forth the money backed out, which I believe his name was Atkinson or something like that. But when you look at it from this point of view, and you look at everything that we did, we spent a butt ton of money just to get a performance out of these players. Excuse me. And like I said, we're in two totally different coaching regimes at this point because Del Rio is going to do whatever he can for the player. Well, Jon Gruden is not really like that. And let's just go over here and look at exactly what I'm talking about. Jon Gruden is about the complete opposite. Jon Gruden is going to do what is best for his system, and he's going to try to pay as little as possible to make that happen. Now, this year it hasn't looked very good for him. As a matter of fact, he's made some very big boneheaded moves just to try to save money, and I will be the first to say it, that a lot of the moves that he's made has tanked this football team. Whether he meant to or not, he's definitely tanking the team. But our assets and our finances are completely the opposite direction of what they were with Jack Del Rio and to where we've got way more than $2 million in cap space. Our team cap space now, with everything up to date as of today, is $6,910,243. We are spending an outrageous amount on offense at $106,507,579, and we're barely brazing the surface with defense at $55,523,569. Special teams being the lowest, of course, at $3,587,605. Now, looking at the cap numbers and whatnot, Jon Gruden isn't doing anything outside of what he would normally do with the football team that he was running, because he's going to dump a lot more money into the offense and not very much money into the defense, expecting huge numbers out of his offense and his defense just basically scraping to get by to hold them to a certain amount of points to where the offense can blow out other teams. It's the same way we did everything when he was here before. And if people remember right, Jon Gruden's first year with the Raiders wasn't the best of all seasons for him either. So after dumping all that money that Jack Del Rio decided to dump into the football team at that 12-4 season, and I mean really, literally, all kinds of people got bonuses. We brought people in like Cordell Patterson, who got fat contracts for one-year deals, and then we also had dudes like, Seth Roberts that we just happened to give way too much money to, who honestly didn't produce the type of numbers that he needed to produce to earn that kind of money. And I do believe that our quarterback is falling under that same category. And he happened to be the one that we paid a bunch of money to that put us in these cap issues, okay? During that football season when Jack Del Rio was trying to be the players coach and hook everybody up. Well, this is where it got us. 6-10. Our points for was 18.8 points a game, 23rd out of 32 possible teams. Points against was 23.3, 20th. You know what I mean? Our expected win and loss record was 6-0. And we finished that 6-10. Our offensive coordinator was Todd Downing. And then, of course, defensive coordinator was Ken Norton and John Pagano. Now, you look at all the money that we've spent, and you look at the way everything went, I'm really not surprised that Mark Davis went the direction that he went. And I'm just being flat honest with you about that. And even with all the money that the Raiders have borrowed and possibly owe the NFL for, possibly about $1.2 billion, this is something that floored me because I went and checked out Forbes. Now, if I know anything about how money works, I'm really honestly thinking that this number here for team value is $2,420,000,000. So he has basically doubled the team revenue. He's made this team worth something. So I honestly can't hate Mark Davis for this. You know what I mean? His dad purchased this team back in 1966 for $180,000, and its total revenue is $335 million. That's absolutely outstanding. And to be honest with you, I can't hate on Mark Davis at all for what he's done with the team because he has turned this team around financially. Now, like I said, there's been two totally different coaching regimes. You've got one coach who's all about the players, and then you've got another coach who's all about himself and running the scheme that he wants to run and going with players who are best going to fit his scheme, regardless on who they are and what they are and how much money they make. But I can tell you one thing I don't like to see. If you remember back in 2014, what I was just explaining in this video, our offensive coordinator, when we were averaging the worst that we could possibly ever average in offensive points per game back in 2014, It was 15.8 points a game. Hop back up to 2018, which is today. We have the same offensive coordinator that was having us average that low average on offensive points, and look at our points for now. 18.3 points a game. If it's one thing I have to ask this coach is, why did he bring back Greg Olsen? Definitely, if I'm Mark Davis, I feel like I'm winning. Because for the simple fact, we did go 12-4, but we spent about $32 to $35 million in roster bonuses for everybody to get 12-4, just for them to fall apart and to have the team completely fall apart on us to fall to 6-10 the next season later. Something had to be done, and even though Mark Davis is spending $100 million on a coach in Jon Gruden is cutting the roster down, trying to help our salary cap issues due to the fact of what everybody else pulled on the roster bonuses, and bringing in, excuse me, all these players on one-year deals that were extravagant. Other contracts to players that were non-deserving, which we could name a few players on this team who are making way more money than they deserve to be making. You know, you guys have an issue with the way everything is being ran. You guys need to look at Jack Del Rio and his coaching regime and the way they spent money, along with Reggie McKenzie. So what I would like to go ahead and ask for you guys to do is, how about you go down here in the comments section and you go ahead and tell me, after this new revelation that I have given to you, would you rather still have Jack Del Rio, who did happen to be a player's coach where the players did play for him, but he was completely senseless and naive when it came to spending Mark Davis's money on practice facilities that we weren't even going to operate any longer. Now, if you have any idea of what I'm talking about, or you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, how about you go look at San Diego Stadium now? Go look at their practice fields. All right? That stuff is about 4 to 5 foot tall. Nobody manages it. Nobody's been taking care of it, at least the last time I went and looked online. Of course, because I'm all the way out here in Texas. It's not like I can drive to San Diego and go look myself. But if there's anybody down in San Diego, hey, why don't you guys let us know about that? And everybody else, why don't you go ahead and go down in the comments section and let me know on whether you would still have Jack Del Rio in here with his coaching regime. And remember, he got rid of Bill Musgrave to promote Todd Downing, and basically had us fall to 6-10 after the team decided to quit playing for him. Or would you rather have Jon Gruden, who's a guy who's coming in here? He's a no-nonsense kind of coach. He expects a certain criteria out of his players, and he's going to get that out of them one way or another, even if it means gutting the roster and picking his own people. I'm still undecided about it. I don't know exactly what to think yet, but I do know this. I'm a Raider fan all the way up until the day I die. I'm not jumping ship. I'm not going anywhere, so obviously I'm going to ride this storm out and see where it goes. But to be honest with you, I do believe that whether we picked up Jon Gruden or not, and whether we could have spent the money elsewhere, we did need to move on from Jack Del Rio, because Al wouldn't have let this happen. And how could we ask Mark to let something happen that Al wouldn't? So I know this probably sounds like that I'm taking up for the organization, and in certain aspects I am. Because looking at the numbers from everything that we had, and I've been following this team forever. If you look over here, I mean, you could tell, man, that jacket is from 1986. All right? I've been a Raider fan since 1986. That's kind of why I kept the jacket, because that happened to be my sister's jacket at one point. And she got it bought for her by my parents, and then she passed it down to me when she outgrew it, and it's been in my possession ever since. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I look at that right there and I see prestige. I remember how good we used to be with Bo Jackson, even though it might not have shown in the win and loss columns back then, but we were a team to be feared. And I know that we can get back to that. And I know Mark Davis is actually attempting to make this organization worth money to where people do want to see us in the league. The only thing I do worry about that when it comes to making the money like this for the organization, making the organization worth way more than what it was purchased for, I'm afraid for it to be sold. Because I don't want the Raiders outside of the Davis family. I know a lot of you do call for it. But you do have to understand that if the Raiders ever do leave the Davis family, do you realize that the next thing could be that the name changes, that the color scheme changes? Some things people shouldn't wish for, guys. And I'm just being honest with you about that. So anyway, I'm real sorry that this video has been all over the place, and it really, I hope it does come together and make a whole lot of sense for everybody to kind of just calm down. We've got to give Gruden time. Let's not focus all of our energies on conspiracy theories and things of what was and things of what could have been. We need to look at now. Okay, we're not very good right now. We suck. But I'm telling you, Jon Gruden is here to help. And I'm not a real big follower of Jon Gruden. As a matter of fact, I believe that he spends his time on TV way too much instead of coaching the football team. But he is trying to build a brand. He is trying to be the face of the organization. Because I do believe that that's what he was brought in here for. And he's going to take this team to Vegas. And if he's got to tank this season to get us better draft picks for the move to Vegas to be a little bit more pleasurable, then that's what he's going to do. Now, whether he's going to tell us on whether he's tanking or not, he's not going to. Okay, he's not going to tell us the truth about it. But I've always been told, man, hindsight's 20/20. Believe nothing of what you hear and half of what you see. And what I see is us tanking. I see us trying to get a better draft pick and get established for the move to Las Vegas. And Jon Gruden is purging this team. He's getting rid of all the high contract players. Dudes like Amari Cooper are going to be gone soon, and I have a feeling that Derek Carr will be gone soon. There's just too much money wrapped up into these certain individuals without the numbers of production happening. So, I mean, I'm not going to fault the organization for this. This is a complete rebuild. And I do believe that it's better to do it now than wait till later on to where we're really in cap casualty trouble. Because if you guys go over the cap and you look at teams like Cleveland, okay, yes, they might be doing a little bit better than us, but go look at that dead money they have. That is no joke. That could be us. If you think that we have the worst owner in the league, man, go look at the cap casualties for certain teams. Go look at their dead money. You will appreciate Mark Davis more, I promise you. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Raider Critique of my assessment of the state of the Raiders. I'm going to be going out here and shooting a pregame at you guys for next week. When Week 8 decides to start, so stay tuned for that. And I do want to thank all the new subscribers and old subscribers for tuning in for this video and every other video that I post up. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't do this. I don't monetize my page to get paid. I do this just for the sheer fact that I love my football team, and I would like to see us do well. And even if I've got to complain about it, because, well, to be honest with you, I'm in Texas, man. Nobody wants to hear me complain about them. So at least there's quite a few of you here who will sit here and listen to me rant and rave. And that I appreciate. But anyway, Raider Nation for life. I will see you guys in the next episode of the Raider Critique.